Hi, Assalamualaikum. So today we meet again in order to discuss another topic of public finance, which is public debt. And for your information, public debt, the topic of public debt is one of the topic that will be tested in your final test. Okay, so let's look on the definitions of public debt. Okay, public debt is a loan raised by the government either domestically or externally. Okay, so any loan that the government borrow from the domestic source or foreign source, then that is a public debt. So the reasons of the public debt are various, which will be discussed on the subsequent discussion. Okay. Look at the newspaper cuttings that are included in the slides. Why do you think that include these newspaper cuttings? Look at the headings. External debt up to 908.7 million, highest debt in Malaysian history. Malaysian seeks 4.8 billion to cover overspending. Why I included these headings is because right after this lecture, I want you, if let's say um, across your reading, then you see on all these kind of headings, read it, don't skip it, okay? Because right after this lecture, you'll be gaining, the basic understanding on what is public debt. Okay, so once you know what is public debt, why government have to borrow, um, what are the phenomenon outside there globally on the public debt so as on Malaysian context. So by having all this knowledge, you'll be able to understand the scenario of the public financial of the government. Okay, and if let's say before this, anywhere you read, okay, you read in Facebook or you read in any media, you tend to just absorb, but now you'll be able to analyze whether that author is actually in your opinion right the right things, or you might have a different opinions. You'll be able to analyze when you have the basic knowledge. So you will be inshallah the administrator one day, and you need this kind of knowledge. So if you encounter any headings on this uh, news reading, okay, because lately there are a lot of issues on Malaysia's economy. So the more you read, it will enhance your knowledge and you'll be better in giving opinions. Okay, so that's why I included that. So remember, okay, if you encounter any of these headings, read it. Okay, so let's move on. Why the government borrow? Okay, the reasons are various. Okay, uh, first, in order to cope with deficit, okay, so when our government are facing deficit, yet the government want to continue on all the developmental projects. So one of the way in order to do that is by borrow, okay, by borrowings, either domestics or either externals. So long that we get money and we can continue with our development projects, which the aims in order to boom in the economy, then our government will borrow. Or government want to borrow in order to carry out mega projects. In Malaysia, we have ECRL, MRT, one point of time, Pen Borneo highways. These are all mega projects, which one of the aim is to attract investors to come in, uh, create employment, booming the economy. So in order to create mega projects, normally mega projects consume huge amount of money. So our revenue are unable to cope with the cost of mega projects. So normally we borrow, or the government need to borrow in order to prosecute war. Okay, if let's say government need to go for war and war actually consumes lots of money, so uh, government need to borrow. Okay, we can see how the budget of US goes to trillion when at the year when they need to go for war in Afghanistan, Vietnam, and Iraq. Okay, so they did borrow in order to finance those war. Then, in order to improve the defense system, okay, the government also borrow in order to improve the defense system, in order to buy new weapons, new machineries, new jet fighter. Okay, so these are all can be normally we finance that using the borrowings money and to encourage the development of money. Sometimes our banking sector itself is not strong enough, so they are unable to provide money, so the government, on behalf of all the banks, will borrow from the international financial institution in order to help the banking sector. Okay, so the reasons are various on why the government borrow. Okay, now I want to introduce you all to the scenario of the debt in a global context. Okay. Okay. Um, is that only Malaysia that having that, or is this normal? Okay, the answer is normal. Okay, most of the countries outside there have borrows. They have public debt. Okay, so I give you examples. Some of the examples in the slides. Okay, first we have Ireland. Okay, Ireland is at the early 1990s still not very developed, okay, but moving through on 2000s, they actually their development is rapid. One of the formula of this rapid development is because they have a very low corporate tax. So when they have a very low corporate tax, they actually attracts investors outside there to invest in Ireland. So when there's a lot of investment in Ireland, uh, this is also attracts more employment and more migration from people outside Ireland to Ireland. So realizing this, the house developer, feels that they need to develop more houses in order to accommodate the residential of those people in the surroundings area. Okay, so the government realized that this could be another way in order to boost up the economy, which is by you know which is by sparking all these house development, okay, so that this will boost up the economy more, okay, but unfortunately, okay, this happens not at the right time. Okay, why? uh, you they are having on 2008, we are all around the world, across the globe, are facing US financial crisis. We get affected from the US financial crisis, so this is one of the reasons. The second reason is when the US financial crisis happens, this affects the island economy, and then the houses that they plan to build earlier, where the developer get the money from the Irish banks, okay, and the people who want to buy the house also get it from the Irish banks, okay, and uh, it turns out in Ireland, the major economic sector is constructions. So we can see whenever economic crisis happen, constructions are one of the sectors that affects heavily. Okay, so when U.S. economic crisis happened, um, the construction sector are unable to progress, okay, while they are already, the developer already have loans with the Irish bank. Same goes to the consumers who buy the house. They already have loans with the Irish banks. So when they are able to pay for the loans, or we call that as non-performing loans, NPLs, and it is not healthy for the economy to have high NPLs. So when they have high NPLs, they are unable to pay for the banks. This will lead to the collapse of the banking industries. Okay, banking industries in any economy is those who makes the economy stand. It is the banking industry is the pasar, pasar of the economy. So I, US have proved that the collapse of the banking industries in US have um, makes the US financial crisis. Okay, spark the US financial crisis. So Ireland knows that they cannot cope with this collapse in these banking industries. So what they do is they borrow. Okay, they borrow from IMF, and they have a stringent spending cuts in order to recover back. Okay, that what was happened in Ireland, Greece as well. Okay, but Greece financial crisis happenings not only on because on U.S. financial crisis, but because of they tend to have deficit, high deficit year by year, or we can say that this is a problem of fiscal mismanagement. Okay, when they are unable to have good mechanism for fiscal consolidation, they are unable to reduce the debt, and year by year the debt have the debt increase. Okay, until in 2009, if I'm not mistaken, their deficit goes up until 15%. And at that time they are also facing um, the problem, the instability of their bond market, and that makes the economy unstable. So what they do is they ask for help from the European countries. Greece are part of Euros, so they ask for help for European countries, and this the not only that, okay, Greece also have lots of debt with euros. So Greece asks for debt forgiveness. Okay, I'll teach you what is debt forgiveness. But the European countries are unable to provide uh, debt forgiveness. So they want Greece to manage their debt. So the highest lender for the Greece is the Germans. The Germans, okay, they provide Greece with high amount of debt in order to rebuild back the economy. Okay, but they are actually gaining. Okay, they are recovering by having um, spending cards, and then they reduce their pension allocation. Greece is one of those countries who have highest pension allocation. Okay, they give pension, okay, in a very high amount to their pensioners. So in order to recover back the economy, they reduce their pension, the pension lah, the pension, the allocation for pension. Okay, that is what happened in Greece. Okay, Portugal as well. What Portugal is actually get affected from the U.S. financial crisis, and they are also not having a very strong economy, so they affected heavily. So they do borrow from IMF, in order to recover back the economy. So not only Malaysia, the economic instability that makes all this government borrow is happens globally. Okay, so not only Malaysia. So according to IMF 2012, if you can see, Japan, Greece, Italy, Portugal, and Ireland, these are the top five of the high levels of public debts. Okay, we can see these are all developed countries and they can move, they can develop so well, even they have a high public debt. Okay, we can see that Japan, 229.77% of GDP. Malaysia, recently with all this COVID pandemic, our public debt um, levels is 60% of GDP. But you can see Japan is more. Okay, they borrow two times more than their GDPs, 229.77% of GDP. GDP is the income of our government. If you still remember what you learned in macroeconomy, you learn on how this sector contributes to the economy. So these are our income. Okay, so in Malaysia, we know that this is our income. We should only borrow not more than 60% of the income because we're afraid of not able to pay back. See how Japan, they borrow 200% more than their income, 229% more than their income. So how risky their economy is. Okay, then look at the current global public debt. Okay, the map that I provided you. Okay, the red zone, the red color is those countries who have high public debt. You can see US, Australia, at the left side, you can see Portugal, Ireland, Greece. Okay, these are all, Japan not excluded, also having high public debt. Okay, we Malaysia, if you can see, still green, still have you know um, um, in the middle, okay, on public debt. But look at the countries on the Middle East. Okay, they have a very lower debt. Okay, so that is the public debt um, the public debt situation in Malaysia. Okay, so just now we are looking on the global phenomena of public debt. Now we want to look on the Malaysian context on public debt. Okay, so this is not the latest. Okay, I believe lots more. Okay, this is on 2016, whereby our government debt stood at 870 billion, which is 75.2% of GDP, and it is 95% of its debt coming from the domestic debt. Okay, and this includes the federal government, state government, and National Finance Council. Boleh muak pula lah. Okay, then look at the trend of government debt in Malaysia. Okay, in 2010, our debt is 53.51%. Then it goes down in 2012, 53.3%, goes up a little bit to 54.7%. Until 2016, we can see that we are actually doing well in terms of our fiscal consolidation. Okay, we are able to reduce our debt, which is very good. But because of this pandemic, our debt rise again uh, to I'm not sure on the latest current debt. Okay, the amount of debt in Malaysia. Look at the Malaysian government gross debt, and we can see on the minister performance. Okay, from we can see our debt kept control well, in 1990 until 1997. Okay, which is the finance minister at that time is Anwar Ibrahim. But we need to bear in mind that in 1997 is the start of the economic crisis, the global financial crisis. So that's why the the spendings, okay, the debt increased until increased year by year from 1998 to 2003, okay, and increased further in the time of Patla and that is Rina Jibaza. Okay. Okay, so we know that our government have debt. We know that Greece government have debt, and most of the governments outside there do have debt. So how to finance those debt? We need to bear in mind that debt is not our money. Debt is we loan from those institutions or government outside there. So we need to pay back. So what are the measures? What are the ways in order to pay them back? Okay, first is interest rate manipulation. Okay, what the government can do is government can through the bank negara can reduce the interest rate so that people can make loans. So when people make loans, people spend, and when people spend, we spark up the all the factories, all the manufacturing sectors, and they can pay government huge amount of money when they have profits. People also when manufacturing also when they have lots of work, they create more employment. When they create more employment, people can pay income tax. Yes, this is a good measure, but it takes a long time, okay, in order for the when the government reduce the interest rate, okay, in order for the economy to regain back its momentum, it consumes a high durations of time. Okay, then instituting spending cards. Okay, in order we have our expenditure every year. So in order to pay back the debt, we reduce the expenditure, we cut the spending. Okay, this happens. This mechanism, okay, this way on how to finance debt succeeded in the Canada when they institute very stringent spending cuts. Okay, they cut the spending until they can pay the debt. Just right away, and they have a very 0% deficit. Okay, so that is how spending cuts can help. Okay, but the easiest way, yet not likable, which is raising taxes. Okay, when the government has so much debt, the easiest way is to introduce debt or raise taxes, raise corporate tax, raise um, income tax, raise import tax, whatever tax rates raises, or introduce the new taxes like sugary drink tax or digital tax. Okay, so these are how government want to cope with high increase of public debt. This is the easiest way. Okay, and the government can get it instant. Okay, when just right away, straight away increase the tax, keep the people will be able to pay in high tax to the government, then government can pay for the debt. But it is not likable. People tend to have um, disputes over increase of tax. Just remember when the government want to increase GSTs, which one of one of the aim is to reduce the public debt. See how the people that time disputed, okay, the introductions of GST that time. Then the last one is debt forgiveness. Okay, this is what Greece government asked all the European countries who provide Greece loans. Okay, provide loan to the Greece to provide them debt forgiveness. Debt forgiveness is they ask, it's like settle lah. Okay, the for Greece ask the European countries untuk settle lah debt tu, just settle macam tu je. Okay, that is debt forgiveness. Okay, but realizing that Greece should learn something, okay, on how to manage the fiscal. So the debt forgiveness is not granted by the European countries. Okay, so is having debt is good or not? Okay, so we have two different perspectives. On the traditional perspective, um, debt is only imposed burden to the community. Why? Because huge amount of debt will impact the economy, will impact the government to pay back the economy, and they prefer if the government want to do something, or government want to develop something, government get the money from the taxation. Once the once the development fulfill, then government can reduce back the tax rate. Okay, then the burden of debt also pass through the future generations. Okay, we can see when the debt increase year by year, and then once the debt is too high, and that time government impose tax, then this will be the burden of the future generations. Okay, the burden of interest as well. We need to know that whenever we have loans, we need to pay for the interest, and the interest also increase year by year, and it also subjected to the currency fluctuations. The let's say our currency is not, Malaysia ringgit is not doing good these 2 3 years, this will increase the amount of debt that we need to pay, and it also undermine the credit worthiness. Okay, credit worthiness means um, um, the financial look of our government is not good. Okay, I give you an example. We ourselves, if let's say any of the employees, okay, when they have huge amount of debt, or and when they are unable to pay the debt, this will affect their secretes, sitos. This is our financial look. So let's say we want to borrow for we want to buy another car. So when the bank look at our financial look is not good. So these are our credit worthiness. Same goes to the government. When the investors outside there, or we want to borrow the money later on, when they see that our debt is so huge and the progress of debt repayment is so slow, then this will undermine the credit worthiness, which is not good, okay, for the investors outside there to invest in our countries. Then that is on traditional perspective. Then we look on the modern perspective. The modern perspective believe that debt is not necessarily bad. Okay, well, whenever we get debt, we know on what to do. We know on how this will boom on the economy. We know how this will, when we invest that in mega projects, for example, we can create more employments. We can create more investors to coming in. So, modern perspective believe that debt is an asset, okay, because this will generate the economy. Then it also, like I said, it can improve the employment situation. And for them, for the modern perspective, debt is actually a compulsory sacrifice from the citizens. Okay, why? Yes, you need to pay the tax, but in return you will get development of the countries when the government use that money in order to develop the countries by having more projects, by having more employment. Okay, we can see how Japan is doing so well, okay, when even they have 200 over percent of debt. Okay, okay, that is on perspective on debt. Now let's look where the government can borrow. Okay, there are two sources, which is internal debt and external debt. Okay, internal debt is those debt that can be gained from the domestic source, while external debt from the foreign source. Okay, the internal source, we can have public financial institution. Okay, like central bank, EPF, BSN, SUBSO, and our government do borrow from these sources. That is public. Well, we also have private financial institution, which is all the banks, okay, commercial banks, CIMB, MBB, public banks. Government also can issue government bonds or securities. So those who have money, corporate sectors who have money, they can buy the bonds. So that is also internal source. Then external source, we have the market loans. Okay, those companies outside the country who have surplus fund and they want to lend the government the money, so they can do so, like insurance companies like Alliance. Then we have bilateral loans. Bilateral loans is bilateral, which is one government to another government. For example, when Japan provide loans to Malaysia to start our automobile industries, and we also have loans from China when China give us loans in order to build second bridge. Okay, the Penang second bridge. Then we also can borrow from international development financial institution, which is like international development finance institution, Islamic Development Bank, Asian Development Bank, World Bank, and IMF. Okay. Okay, then we move to the burden of internal debt. Okay, which one is better, internal debt or external debt? Okay, so in internal debt, there is no significant burden because the money does not flow from the domestic market. We borrow from domestic, we pay at the domestics. There's no currency outflow, there's no currency exchange that will influence, and the money also circulated domestics, which means we borrow from the domestics. We want to boost up the domestic economy, and this is okay. Okay, that's why the writings that I provide you that day partner asks us to borrow from the domestic source. Then we look on the external debt. Okay, external debt involve a greater burden. Okay, um, where it is subjected to currency outflow, currency exchange. Okay, but the good things is it is also involve transfer of technologies. Okay, example, when Japan, we want to borrow money from Japan in order to start up our automobile industry. Japan not only provide loans, they also provide technological transfer. They teach us on how to use technologies. Okay, they teach us new technologies as well. Okay, look at the implications. Positive implications. Okay, debt can help us to combat inflation and depressions. Okay, well, during inflation, price of the general products increase, so government need to more fund in order to undertake the necessary activities. So this need monies, so government can borrow. Then government also be able to implement more developmental projects by having loan money. Government will be able to improve to develop more. So this will increase employment. This will increase the growth. This will reduce poverty. Then if the borrowings come from internal source, it will reduce the currency outflow. Okay, currency outflow, huge currency outflow will also influence our currency exchange. Then if the public borrowing is used in purchasing goods and services produced by public sector, then this will increase the national income. We sometimes borrow from the outside, okay, or from the domestics in order to purchase our products, purchase Felda products, purchase the domestic product lah. Okay, so once we purchase, this will increase the consumption of the products, and thus will improve the economy and provide government money in the form of tax. Okay, then the positive also, government will be able to balance revenue and expenditure. Okay, when we have insufficient revenue but we have lots of expenditure, So government can borrow. In terms of external loan, okay, the maturity period is longer, so it is good for the economy. In order, before they pay back the lender, they can get the revenue from that project. And then the negative is in terms of fluctuations of exchange rate. Okay, this will impose more burden because when our currency is dropped down, this will increase the amount of payment that we need to pay. Then outflow of funds will affect the balance of payment. Okay, we have lots uh, currency outflow, so this will affect the balance of payment and our reserve. Okay, in order to pay the lender, now we need to pay the lender in their currency, so we need to change our currency to their currency. This will affect our reserve. Okay, so this is negative implication. And loan that have tenure, long-term tenure, normally government finance that through taxation. So when have taxation, this will impose burden to the taxpayer. Then it also will increase the inequalities of income, as distribution of income could be affected due to the overburden of debt. Okay, when taxation is a lot, and then new taxation, and people are unable to pay, and this will increase the inequalities of income. It also will affect productions if huge loans are taken. Okay, subsidies, financial assistance that government provide, all the BRIMS ke BPN. If let's say government want to pay for the debt, so government need to cut back all those. Okay, macam dekat Greece, okay, whereby government have to the some rate for their pension in order to pay the loans. And individual consumption will be affected as when the tax increase, um, we have less salary, and when we have less salary, we'll consume less. Okay, so in conclusion, is it good to borrow? Okay, generally no government can live without borrowing. Okay, it is how the government use the money productively in order to gain back um, the return. Okay, once government invest, government can get the return, and from that return government can pay back the debt. Okay, so debt is a very good source of investment. It's just how the issues of accountability, the issues of productivity on the usage of the loan money. Okay, so that's all for public debt. If you have any question, then you may ask me in the tutorial class. That's all. Thank you.